In the world of WWE, where bright lights and roaring crowds reward those willing to shed blood and sweat to shine, not everyone manages to hold on to that glory. Some stars once reached the top, with every opportunity to become legends, only to throw it all away through their own mistakes. Today, we're diving into the stories of wrestlers who single-handedly destroyed their own careers, and left behind a legacy filled with regret. And now, let's start with the first name on our list. Ultimate Warrior, the legend who burned himself out. When Ultimate Warrior burst onto the WWE scene in 1987, he was like a wild storm sweeping through the ring, unlike anyone else, defying all conventions. With his wild hair, vibrant face paint, and promos that sounded like he was speaking to the cosmos, Warrior quickly became a living symbol for a generation of fans. He wasn't just a wrestler, he was the embodiment of raw energy, pure power, and explosive charisma. His career peaked at WrestleMania 6 in 1990, where he faced off against the immortal Hulk Hogan in a legendary match with both the Intercontinental and WWE Championships on the line. That victory made Warrior one of the rare few to hold both titles simultaneously, an extraordinary, unforgettable achievement. But the spotlight couldn't hide the cracks forming behind the scenes. In 1991, just before SummerSlam, Warrior shocked everyone by sending a letter to Vince McMahon demanding a $500,000 payday, equal to Hogan's. He threatened to walk out of the event if his demand wasn't met. Caught in a high-stakes business moment, Vince reluctantly agreed. But the moment SummerSlam ended, he immediately suspended Warrior in response to what he saw as arrogant and unprofessional behavior. This clash didn't just cost Warrior his job, it also damaged his professional image in the eyes of both management and fellow wrestlers. When he returned to WWE in 1992, fans hoped he would reclaim his former glory. But times had changed. WWE was in crisis, facing a federal investigation over steroid use, and Warrior's famously muscular physique raised suspicions. Not long after, he was fired again, his second exit from the company that was supposed to be his home. Warrior's reputation began to spiral. Industry insiders described him as uncontrollable, difficult to work with, and unwilling to follow direction. He distanced himself from former colleagues and seemed to sever ties with the wrestling community. In 1998, he signed with WCW to resume his feud with Hulk Hogan. But instead of a triumphant return, it was a total disaster. Poorly written storylines, long-winded segments, and his match with Hogan at Halloween Havoc that year were widely panned as confusing, emotionless, and downright awful. Even outside the ring, Warrior often left people baffled. He legally changed his name to Warrior, reportedly to gain control over the character's rights. Legal battles with WWE over his name, likeness, and intellectual property dragged on for years. His increasingly erratic behavior and refusal to reconcile with former peers left him isolated from the wrestling world. In 2005, WWE released a documentary titled The Self-Destruction of the Ultimate Warrior, which mocked and harshly criticized him. It was widely seen as WWE's unofficial way of saying Warrior was erased from its legacy. However, in 2014, a surprising and emotional turning point occurred. Warrior reconciled with WWE, was inducted into the Hall of Fame, and made a heartfelt return at WrestleMania 30. He delivered a moving speech on Monday Night Raw, thanking the fans who had stood by him. Tragically, just one day later, Warrior died of a heart attack at the age of 54. His sudden death shocking the entire wrestling world. Looking back, Ultimate Warrior's career was a strange symphony of triumph and self-destruction. He once stood at the very top, but his own extreme choices and personal conflicts helped push him away from the spotlight. Still, the Ultimate Warrior remains one of the most unique figures in WWE history, a fierce, unforgettable force of nature. Jeff Hardy, a wild genius and the career he set on fire. Jeff Hardy wasn't just a superstar in the ring. He was a symbol for a generation of young rebels, bringing a daring, creative energy that shook up the wrestling world. Alongside his brother Matt, Jeff helped create the Hardy Boys phenomenon, one of the most beloved tag teams of the late 90s. With their death-defying ladder dives, legendary TLC matches, and one-of-a-kind style, Jeff carved his name into the hearts of fans everywhere. But the spotlight always casts shadows. As early as the 2000s, Jeff's personal life began spiraling out of control. Rumors about him showing up late, skipping rehearsals, and performing without focus soon became undeniable truths. At the core of it all was substance abuse, a demon Jeff couldn't shake. In April 2003, after repeated violations and refusing to enter rehab, WWE had no choice but to terminate his contract. It was the first time he threw away a golden opportunity, but not the last. After leaving WWE, Jeff took a brief step back from wrestling to get his life in order. But within a year, he signed with TNA, hoping for a fresh start. Unfortunately, the Jeff Hardy who showed up in TNA was the same one, brilliant but unstable. He missed major events without explanation, gave lackluster performances, and continued to struggle with substance issues. Skipping Hard Justice 2005, a key pay-per-view, led to multiple suspensions. By 2006, TNA had no choice but to release him. Then came a return to WWE, this time with a promise of redemption. And for a while, he delivered. Jeff embarked on a dazzling run of success. Fans once again embraced him, producers backed him, and he even captured the WWE Championship, the pinnacle of wrestling achievement. But in a cruel twist of fate, history repeated itself. In 2007, Jeff was suspended for violating WWE's wellness policy. Just a year later, he was suspended again, costing him a spot in the Money in the Bank match at WrestleMania, a devastating blow to both his fans and himself. And just when things seemed like they couldn't get worse, his life outside the ring took a darker turn. In September 2009, while recovering from an injury after leaving WWE, Jeff's home was raided by police. He was arrested for possession of multiple illegal substances, including cocaine and steroids. The incident sparked years of legal troubles and severely damaged his public image. Still, Jeff didn't give up. He returned to TNA in 2010 and reclaimed the TNA World Heavyweight Championship, but this time, the cost was fan trust. Victory Road 2011 became an infamous low point in Jeff's career. Showing up visibly impaired for a main event against Sting, the match had to be cut short just minutes in. The sight shocked the wrestling world, a former icon now stumbling into the spotlight like a lost soul. Even so, WWE gave him yet another chance in 2017. Jeff returned with strong performances and overwhelming fan support. But once again, the past caught up with him. In 2021, during a live event, he suddenly exited a match mid-performance, walked through the crowd, and disappeared. WWE offered him rehab. He refused. Shortly after, he was released once again. Jeff Hardy's story is a tragic one in the world of sports entertainment, a tale of gifted brilliance undone by personal demons. He had it all: fame, success, and the love of millions. But instability, impulsiveness, and the lure of addiction kept dragging him down from the peak. Jeff Hardy remains a beloved figure in WWE history. But instead of becoming one of its all-time greats, he now stands as a painful reminder of one truth: talent alone isn't enough if you can't control yourself. Enzo Amore, the bitter end of an arrogant star. From the moment Enzo Amore debuted in NXT in 2012, it was clear he wasn't your average performer. With his outrageous hairstyle, eccentric fashion, and street-style mic skills, Enzo quickly grabbed attention. He didn't need elite in-ring skills to stand out. His charisma and unmatched promo ability made him a natural show-stealer. Teaming up with Big Cass, the two became one of the most popular and entertaining tag teams in NXT. Every time they walked out, crowds would chant Enzo's signature lines like a ritual. They brought humor, energy, and a unique flair to every arena they entered. In 2016, Enzo and Big Cass were called up to WWE's main roster and instantly became fan favorites. They competed for Tag Team Gold, were featured in major storylines, and were regularly showcased on TV. Enzo's microphone mastery made him one of the most entertaining personalities in WWE at the time. But the spotlight couldn't hide the chaos behind the scenes. The very traits that made Enzo beloved by fans, his bold personality and unfiltered style, reportedly rubbed many of his colleagues the wrong way. Rumors swirled about his arrogance, lack of respect, and tendency to isolate himself from the locker room. Tensions escalated to the point where Enzo was reportedly kicked out of the locker room, a major statement in wrestling culture that signals a collective rejection. He became completely isolated backstage, with no positive relationships left, and this growing divide started to affect his standing within the company. When his partnership with Big Cass fell apart in 2017, Enzo was moved to 205 Live, WWE's show for cruiserweight wrestlers. For many, it seemed like a demotion, a sign that WWE had lost faith in him. But Enzo didn't give up. He went on to become a two-time cruiserweight champion, no small feat in a highly competitive division. Still, his backstage reputation overshadowed his accomplishments. And then, everything collapsed in early 2018. That January, Enzo Amore was accused of sexual assault stemming from an incident in October 2017. But what made the situation worse wasn't just the allegation itself. It was the fact that Enzo had never informed WWE that he was under investigation, a serious violation of the company's code of conduct. WWE stated they only learned about the case through the media and immediately suspended him pending an internal review. Just days later, WWE officially released Enzo Amore. In a company like WWE, failing to be transparent about a situation of that magnitude is simply unacceptable. Although the charges were later dropped due to lack of evidence, the damage was already done. Enzo's WWE career was over, not because of poor performance, but because of poor judgment. After his release, Enzo tried to reclaim his spotlight in his own way. He launched a music career under the name Real One and made appearances at independent wrestling events. But the post-WWE road wasn't easy. Public reaction to him was sharply divided. Some still supported him, while others had completely turned their backs. He made a few returns to the ring in smaller promotions, trying to keep his persona alive. But it was clear the buzz was gone. His name had become more associated with controversy than with any memorable achievement in the ring. Enzo Amore's story is a cautionary tale, proof that talent alone isn't enough. You can be gifted, you can be popular, but if your ego clouds your judgment and you fail to respect your company and your peers, the spotlight won't last. Enzo didn't fall from the top. He pushed himself off. And perhaps, he'll always be remembered not as a great success, but as one of WWE's biggest missed opportunities. Mr. Kennedy, a talent undone by his own mistakes. When Mr. Kennedy debuted in WWE in 2005, there was no denying his unique charisma. With his deep, commanding voice, excellent mic skills, and his signature name announcement from a microphone dropping from the ceiling, Kennedy quickly stood out. He had the look, the presence, and a captivating in-ring style, a perfect blend of athleticism, character, and showmanship. It didn't take long for both fans and WWE management to see him as a future main event star. 2007 marked a major turning point in his career. Kennedy won the Money in the Bank match at WrestleMania 23, giving him the coveted opportunity to challenge for a world title at any time. Even more, WWE planned to make him the centerpiece of a shocking storyline, as Vince McMahon's illegitimate son. It was a bold, headline-making angle that could have launched Kennedy into superstardom. But just weeks after his biggest victory, everything started to fall apart. Kennedy suffered an injury during a match. Initial medical reports suggested a torn triceps, a serious injury that could sideline him for 6 months. With such a long layoff threatening key storylines, WWE was forced to rewrite its plans. Kennedy lost the Money in the Bank briefcase to Edge, who quickly cashed in and became world champion. Ironically, just days after the creative shift, a more accurate diagnosis revealed that Kennedy didn't have a torn triceps at all, only a minor muscle strain that would have kept him out for just a few weeks. But by then, it was too late. Edge was already champion, and the momentum behind Kennedy had vanished. Kennedy himself later admitted this was a critical turning point, one that cost him the trust of both WWE officials and the fans. But the setbacks didn't stop there. Later in 2007, Kennedy was caught up in a major steroid scandal when his name appeared on a list of wrestlers allegedly linked to banned substances. Although he denied any wrongdoing and claimed ignorance, WWE suspended him under its strict wellness policy. The incident further damaged his reputation and sent his career into a downward spiral. After returning, Kennedy continued to struggle with persistent injuries throughout 2008 and 2009. He was frequently sidelined due to pain and physical instability. Despite his efforts to bounce back, he started gaining a reputation for being unsafe in the ring, a serious accusation in the high-stakes environment of WWE. Several colleagues reportedly voiced concerns about working with him, and the pressure mounted. Things came to a head in May 2009. During a much-anticipated return on Raw, Kennedy participated in a tag match that included top star Randy Orton. A mistimed bump between the two triggered backstage tension, and sources claimed Orton was visibly upset, accusing Kennedy of being reckless and potentially injuring others. Just days after the incident, WWE announced it had released Mr. Kennedy. And just like that, a once promising career came to an abrupt and disappointing end. Kennedy would go on to wrestle under the name Mr. Anderson in TNA, where he found some success, including 2 world championship reigns. But the shine he once had in WWE never quite returned. Injuries, controversy, and the growing perception that he was difficult to work with all but closed the door on any possible return to the company. Mr. Kennedy's story serves as a cautionary tale. Even a few missteps, whether out of bad luck or bad judgment, can derail a promising career. He remains one of WWE's most unfortunate, what could have been, cases. A star who had everything in place to reach the top, but lost it all before he truly arrived. Sunny, a shining icon who destroyed it all. Tammy Lynn Sytch, better known as Sunny, was once one of the most prominent female figures in WWE history. When she debuted in 1995, fans were immediately captivated by her charm, quick wit, and magnetic on-screen presence. Without ever stepping into the ring as a competitor, Sunny lit up arenas every time she appeared. As a manager, she helped elevate tag teams like the Body Donnas and the Smoking Guns, setting a new standard for women in wrestling at the time. By 1996, Sunny's fame had even surpassed the wrestling world. She was named the most downloaded woman on the internet, beating out pop culture icons like Pamela Anderson, an unheard-of achievement for a wrestling personality. She appeared on countless TV shows, magazine covers, and was hailed as a trailblazer who brought WWE's female talent into the mainstream spotlight on par with Hollywood stars. But while the spotlight illuminated her rise, cracks behind the scenes were beginning to show. Her personal life grew increasingly complicated. A rumored love triangle involving Sunny, her longtime boyfriend Chris Candido, and Shawn Michaels became tabloid fodder and created serious friction backstage. Candido and Michaels represented opposite ends of the locker room, and Sunny being caught in the middle only escalated the tension. By 1997, rumors of drug use and disruptive backstage behavior started circulating. Some wrestlers claimed she had become difficult to work with, frequently missing shows and clashing with other top names, including Sable. Her growing unprofessionalism began to tarnish her image with management. Finally, in 1998, WWE terminated her contract, bringing a sudden end to what had once been one of the brightest chapters in the modern era of women's wrestling. After leaving WWE, Sunny tried to stay relevant by joining ECW, and later WCW. But she was never able to recapture her previous success. Without WWE's spotlight, she slowly faded from the public eye. At the same time, her personal life spiraled downward. The sudden death of her boyfriend Chris Candido in 2005 took a serious toll on her mental health, leading to increasingly erratic behavior and legal troubles. In 2011, it looked like she might get a second chance. She was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame, a moment that could have marked a redemptive new chapter. But she failed to seize the opportunity. Just a year later, she was arrested 6 times in the span of 4 months, mostly related to domestic disputes and violating restraining orders. WWE reportedly offered to help her enter rehab, but Sunny refused, continuing down a dangerous path. Over the following years, her life continued to spiral. In 2016, she officially entered the adult entertainment industry, partnering with Vivid Entertainment and offering adult content via Skype to fans. This highly controversial move effectively shattered what was left of her reputation among WWE loyalists. The tragedy reached its peak in 2022, when Sunny was involved in a fatal drunk driving incident that killed a man. She was charged with DUI manslaughter, a devastating and serious criminal offense. In November 2023, she was sentenced to 17 years in prison, closing the book on a long, painful journey marked by self-destruction, scandals, and wasted chances. Sunny was once a trailblazer, a pioneering figure who helped shape the future of women in wrestling. But that legacy was ultimately undone by addiction, impulsive decisions, and a string of personal controversies. Today, her story is no longer remembered for its groundbreaking milestones, but as a sobering lesson in how fame can fade when the light is overwhelmed by one's inner darkness. Alberto Del Rio, a star who buried his own spotlight. When Alberto Del Rio debuted on WWE television in 2010, he arrived as the embodiment of Mexican aristocracy, polished, confident, and commanding. With flashy entrances in luxury cars, an air of arrogance, and sharp in-ring skills, Del Rio quickly became one of the standout names of a new generation. More than just a charismatic presence, he was a seasoned competitor with international experience and strong technical prowess. In a short span, Del Rio racked up impressive accolades. He won the 2011 Royal Rumble, outlasting 39 other competitors in what was then the largest Rumble match in WWE history. He went on to win the Money in the Bank contract and officially solidified his place among WWE's top stars. With 4 World Championship reigns under his belt, Del Rio was once seen as a cornerstone of WWE's future. But behind the curtain, his journey was riddled with conflict and controversy. Despite his calm exterior, Del Rio developed a reputation backstage for having a big ego and being difficult to work with. In 2014, his career took a sharp downturn when he was abruptly fired following an altercation with a WWE employee. Reports stated he slapped the staff member after the latter allegedly made a racist remark. While some fans sympathized with his reaction, WWE held firm. Violence, regardless of reason, was unacceptable, and Del Rio was let go. The incident severely damaged his reputation, and a return to WWE seemed unlikely. But in a surprising move, he was brought back in 2015, shocking both fans and industry insiders. He made an immediate impact by defeating John Cena to win the United States Championship and successfully defended it against top-tier opponents. However, tension soon returned. Del Rio reportedly felt undervalued and was frustrated with being placed in lackluster storylines. His discontent escalated in 2016 when he was suspended for violating WWE's wellness policy, a suspension that also involved his then-girlfriend, WWE star Paige. Not long after, Del Rio exited WWE once again, this time under a cloud of disappointment from both sides. In the years that followed, his personal life spiraled into deeper turmoil. His relationship with Paige became a tabloid fixture, marred by public arguments, leaked private content, and allegations of emotional and physical abuse. The couple's constant breakups and reconciliations left fans confused and concerned, painting a picture of chaos rather than success. Del Rio's downfall reached its lowest point in 2020, when he was arrested on serious charges of kidnapping and sexual assault. The case shocked the wrestling world, effectively blacklisting him from nearly all professional wrestling platforms. Although some charges were eventually dropped, the damage to his public image was irreversible. At one time, Alberto Del Rio had it all: talent, fame, recognition, and a clear path to legendary status. But reckless decisions, a volatile temperament, and repeated legal troubles caused his once promising career to unravel. He wasn't defeated by an opponent in the ring, but by his own missteps outside of it. Del Rio's story stands as a stark reminder of how quickly a brilliant career can crumble when self-control is lost. Once seen as a potential game-changer, he is now remembered by many WWE fans as one of the most disappointing figures of his era. Chyna, a trailblazing icon brought down by her own darkness. In the history of WWE, few female wrestlers have left a mark as powerful as Chyna, known as the ninth wonder of the world. She wasn't just exceptionally strong, she redefined what it meant to be a woman in the male-dominated world of professional wrestling. Chyna began her WWE career in the late 1990s and quickly stood out as a member of the legendary faction D-Generation X. Unlike anyone who came before her, Chyna was the first woman to regularly compete against male wrestlers, and she held her own without ever seeming outmatched. With her muscular build, incredible physical strength, and fearless style, she shattered every preconceived notion about the role of women in the industry. Her achievements spoke volumes. Chyna became the first woman ever to win the Intercontinental Championship, a feat that remains unmatched. She also broke barriers by competing in the Royal Rumble match alongside male superstars, earning the admiration of fans worldwide. Chyna wasn't just part of the show, she changed the game. But behind the spotlight was a deeply troubled story. Just as her career was soaring, Chyna's personal life began to unravel, entangled in backstage politics and heartbreak. Her romantic relationship with Triple H, also part of D-Generation X, took a dramatic turn when he began dating Stephanie McMahon, the daughter of WWE Chairman Vince McMahon. That love triangle changed everything for Chyna. Her role in WWE started to shrink, and she felt pushed out of the spotlight. Contract negotiations became tense when she requested a salary on par with top male superstars, a demand WWE leadership reportedly refused. The growing divide eventually led to her departure from WWE in 2001, ending what had been one of the most groundbreaking chapters in women's wrestling. After leaving WWE, Chyna tried to keep her name alive in the public eye. She appeared in reality TV shows, graced the cover of Playboy, and even ventured into acting. But her career took a steep downturn when she entered the adult film industry in the mid-2000s, a controversial decision that alienated many fans and led WWE to completely cut ties with her. At the same time, Chyna struggled with addiction and mental health challenges. She made several attempts to return to wrestling, but WWE never welcomed her back. In interviews, she often expressed a desire to be forgiven and to return home to WWE, but that door remained closed. Her life became increasingly chaotic and isolated. She moved to Japan for a while, hoping to escape the public eye, but the emotional wounds and mounting financial troubles made it difficult to recover. Though once the face of a movement for women in wrestling, Chyna spent her final years out of the spotlight, fighting a silent battle. On April 20, 2016, Chyna was found dead at the age of 46 from an accidental overdose. Her death sent shockwaves through the wrestling world, leaving fans and fellow wrestlers heartbroken. 3 years later, in 2019, WWE posthumously inducted her into the Hall of Fame, not individually, but as part of D-Generation X. While not the solo recognition many believed she deserved, it was a long overdue nod to her legacy. Chyna's story is a tragic example of how unforgiving the entertainment industry can be. From a woman who broke every barrier, she became ensnared in emotional turmoil, backstage politics, and personal struggles. Though eventually honored, much of her life was defined by a relentless fight to reclaim what she had lost. Chyna was more than a pioneer. She symbolized strength and resilience, and served as a painful reminder that even heroes can fall when there's no way out. Ryback, from the human wrecking ball to a symbol of frustration. Ryback was once considered one of WWE's most promising stars in the early 2010s. With his massive build, overwhelming strength, and the now iconic catchphrase, "Feed me more," he quickly drew strong fan reactions and was seen as a potential powerhouse for the company's future. But what started as a rise full of potential didn't last as long as many expected. Ryback began his WWE career through the developmental system, but only truly broke out in 2012 when he returned with the persona of an unstoppable force. His string of squash matches quickly caught fans' attention, and WWE began positioning him for major storylines. His feud with CM Punk for the WWE Championship was clear evidence that the company once viewed him as a serious contender for top-tier status. Soon after, Ryback continued to appear in high-profile events, including Team Cena vs. The Authority at Survivor Series 2014, and he captured the Intercontinental Championship in 2015, a move meant to solidify his mid-card standing. But behind the scenes, tension was quietly building. By 2015, his role started to decline. His storylines became less significant, and he was regularly booked in unremarkable opening matches. At major pay-per-views like WrestleMania 32 and Payback 2016, Ryback found himself relegated to the undercard, a clear sign, in his eyes, that the company no longer valued him. Frustration began to boil over. Ryback started speaking out publicly, criticizing WWE's treatment of talent. He claimed he was once promised the role of a top heel, only to be pushed aside without explanation. More controversially, he openly attacked WWE's pay structure, arguing that wrestlers had to cover their own travel and lodging expenses despite the grueling year-round schedule. In 2016, after failing to reach a new agreement with WWE, Ryback pulled himself from TV and eventually parted ways with the company. But instead of walking away quietly like many before him, Ryback took a loud and confrontational path. He launched his own podcast and used social media platforms to repeatedly take shots at WWE. Not only did he criticize company management, but he also went after top stars like John Cena, calling him the cancer of the locker room. His harsh and unfiltered comments divided fans. Some supported his outspokenness, while others turned their backs. His reputation for blunt, often hostile remarks made many other wrestling promotions hesitant to work with him. Though he continued to wrestle on the independent circuit, Ryback's WWE shadow loomed large. What fans remembered most about him was no longer the image of a dominant wrecking machine, but his angry tweets, bitter interviews, and relentless negativity toward his former employer. Ryback's career stands as a clear reminder that talent alone isn't enough. Attitude, adaptability, and knowing how to navigate public platforms are just as important. He had everything it took to be a cornerstone of WWE, but instead of building on that foundation, he let frustration and resentment take the wheel, closing the door on any real chance of return. Today, Ryback is still active on social media and podcasting, but the once promising star's legacy has been clouded by his own words. What could have been a story of triumph has instead become a cautionary tale, a career derailed by a string of misguided choices. Grandmaster Sex, the tragedy of a son living in a giant shadow. Brian Christopher Lawler, better known to WWE fans as Grandmaster Sex, was once one of the most entertaining figures of the Attitude Era. As the son of WWE legend Jerry, the King Lawler, it seemed Brian was destined for the world of professional wrestling. And through his vibrant high-energy run with the group Too Cool, he managed to carve out a legacy of his own. But behind the bright lights and big laughs was a personal life marked by missteps, heartbreak, and a devastating end. Brian began his WWE career in the late 1990s and quickly found his groove alongside Scotty 2 Hotty and later Rikishi, forming the tag team Too Cool. Their unique style, quirky dance moves, especially Scotty's worm, and fun-loving celebrations made them fan favorites. Brian's Grandmaster Sex persona, complete with sunglasses, flashy jackets, and over-the-top dancing, struck a chord with audiences across the globe. However, no matter how colorful things looked on camera, real life proved far more complicated. In 2001, Brian was released from WWE due to a drug policy violation. Not his first brush with trouble, but the start of a downward spiral that would prove hard to escape. After leaving WWE, he continued to wrestle for smaller promotions, clinging to his former glory. He made a brief return to WWE in 2004, but that stint ended after just a month due to resurfacing personal issues. Despite his determination to stay in the business, the weight of his off-screen struggles made a full comeback nearly impossible. Brian would occasionally return for special WWE appearances. One notable moment came in 2014, when he and Scotty 2 Hotty reunited for Old School Raw, a nostalgic throwback to their heyday. But moments like that were fleeting, and behind the scenes, Brian was still battling demons he couldn't seem to shake. His life grew increasingly unstable. He was arrested multiple times, including 2 separate incidents in 2009 for public intoxication and disorderly conduct. These events further damaged his reputation and made it difficult for promoters and fans alike to see him in the same light. In July 2018, his story took a tragic turn. Brian was arrested for DUI and fleeing from police. He was booked into the Hardeman County Jail in Tennessee. Just days later, on July 28, Brian was found hanging in his cell. Though he was rushed to the hospital, he passed away the next day at the age of 46. His sudden death sent shockwaves through the wrestling world, not just because of how it happened, but because it underscored a heartbreaking reality. Even being the son of a living WWE legend couldn't protect him from loneliness and despair. Jerry Lawler later filed a lawsuit against the jail, alleging they ignored multiple warning signs and failed to prevent the tragedy. A large part of the pressure on Brian's life came from living in the shadow of his famous father. While he often expressed pride in Jerry Lawler's legacy, Brian also admitted to feeling overlooked, as if he could never quite earn the recognition he craved, either within his family or his career. The journey of Grandmaster Sex is the story of a passionate performer who once brought laughter and energy to millions, yet struggled to find peace within himself. From the height of popularity to the depths of hopelessness, Brian Christopher Lawler serves as a painful reminder that fame alone can't heal emotional wounds, not without the right support, care, and understanding. Glory doesn't belong to those who lose their way. These stories serve as a wake-up call. Talent alone isn't enough, you have to know how to hold on to it. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.